Whether you're new to podcasting or you have been podcasting for a hot minute now, in today's episode, I want to share with you what is possible when you commit to podcasting. If you have been hanging out with me for any length of time, you hear me say on the show how you need to focus on being consistent in your mindset and the strategy and SEO and how we put it all together and all of these things. So today I actually want to give you a behind the scenes look of what it looks like to actually put in the time and the energy and the focus into a podcast so that you can actually make money, grow your business, grow your impact. Let's do this. Alrighty, so let's talk numbers and dates so that you understand the timeline and the progression and how everything unfolded. So in May of 2020, I launched my podcast to an audience of literally zero. There was nobody, there was no email list, there was no social media following, literally nothing. And I just had a dream. And when I launched my podcast, I just went into it just knowing that I didn't know how, but I just knew that this thing was going to work. In August of 2020, I made my first sale and I was so excited. And at that point in time, I still remember that moment. I really felt like I could do anything because I had been trying for years prior to build a business online. That was always my dream. And while I had a successful e-commerce store, I had a store on Amazon and a store on Etsy, and those were successful. I always had this dream to have something in the entrepreneurship space where I'm actually teaching people what to do with things like that. That was always a dream of mine. I'm not quite sure why. And I remember years before, I had been wasting time doing all the wrong things. I really wanted to be a non-toxic living coach. I had been living a non-toxic lifestyle before non-toxic living became so popular. So I'm like literally one of the OGs. And like nothing I tried ever worked. And I worked really hard. I burned myself out trying everything out. And here was podcasting and it just worked. I was just showing up and speaking from the heart. And to me, it was so unlikely because at the end of the day, there's like nothing special about me. I'm just this girl. I have an accent and sometimes I say things and I don't even understand what I'm saying when I hear back. And I made a sale for my podcast and I was so super excited to see what was possible. So basically from August 2020 until November 2021, my podcast really became the launchpad for my business. So I was able to sell courses straight from my podcast. I was able to sell coaching straight from my podcast. And I was getting clients from my podcast. This was basically everything that I was doing. I was just podcasting and showing up and my business was growing. My email list was growing and everything was happening organically because of my podcast. Now, up until this point, I had been talking about e-commerce. So when I started podcasting, up until this point, I was just talking about e-commerce and I really just wanted to own that space and give my heart out because I had been trying for years to make money online and I had found a way to make money online. So now I wanted to share with other mamas who wanted to stay home with their babies, how to do the same. And this is what I did for the first year of my podcast, a little bit over a year of my podcast was just talk about that Etsy and Amazon. And I shared literally everything. And I had people who had special notebooks dedicated to my show and they would write down notes and apply it to their shop and see success. And it was really cool to see. But it came a point in December 2021 where I literally felt like I had said everything there was to say about Etsy and Amazon. And I felt like I had so much more to give and I knew so much more, but I felt kept out. Like I felt like there was nothing else I could say. And at that point in time, I had a choice. I could keep going talking about Etsy and Amazon and just kind of repeat myself again and find creative ways to repeat myself without repeating myself. Or I could take a look at my life and analyze what else I could do. And this is exactly what I did. So in December of 2021, I took a hard look at my life and I started to take inventory of all the things that I was good at that I could still monetize on because right now I have a business, right? Like my family depends on this income that we're making. So I can't just shut down, close the doors down and just say, okay, whatever, cool, peace out, I'm out. Like I actually needed to work. I needed to provide for my family. That was the deal that I had made with my family. So by taking inventory of my life and the things that I was good at, I started to realize that, I had this really creative side of me with design and copywriting and of course SEO and putting things all together, reverse engineering things and like being able to see things from a bird's eye view. I was really good at all of these things. And I started then to take a look at, okay, what are things that I have done that I have been successful on? And one of those things for me was, of course, podcasting. So I started to think about, okay, how can I put it together? And basically, I was like, okay, I know what podcasters need to have a successful show. And I'm a podcaster myself, and it just made sense. Let me do this thing for some people because I did not just want to be this person who was like, yeah, let me help you with your podcast. Meanwhile, I haven't podcasted. I haven't actually done the thing myself, which I see so much in this industry, which is something that I find extremely annoying, but that's another story. But the point is, I had a successful podcast that I had been able to grow organically, that I had been able to monetize, that helped me grow my list and do all of these things. So I was like, okay, I feel super equipped to go ahead and help out other people in the space as well. So December 2021, that's when I made the decision that I was going to start a podcast management agency. And lo and behold, I got a client right then and there. And we launched her podcast in January of 2022. And by the way, that podcast that my client launched, which she also did not have an audience, and she had like maybe 20 people on her email list. That podcast, we're still together, we're still working to this day. And that podcast gets like literally thousands of downloads every time her show goes live, which blows my mind. And again, just a little sidebar here. This is the power of podcasting, but this is my story, not hers. So let's get back to here in the journey. So from January 22 until March 2022, I was really struggling with what do I do? Because I started getting more clients in the podcast management agency, but I wasn't doing much to put it out there, So it was really word of mouth. It was me talking to people and say, hey, I can help you. And the clients started coming to me and they were getting a lot of success, a lot of really successful launches, a lot of downloads and all the things. But in my own podcast, I had not made a switch. So even though I made the decision to go all in on this podcast marketing agency, I hadn't actually gone all in because on my podcast, I was still talking about Etsy and Amazon and all of these things because I was afraid. I was afraid to make this leap and actually like, what if you failed and what if you flopped? Because Etsy was safe, right? Like the Etsy coaching and Amazon coaching, it was safe. It was working. What if I like really went all in with the podcast agency and it didn't work? So it was a lot of back and forth and I was trying to reconcile both. And for a while, I was like, I can totally make Etsy coaching and podcast management go together. I can find a way. I know how. If anybody can do it, it's me. And I was really struggling with that for a while until in March of 2022, I literally had a come to Jesus moment. And the moment was, listen, without putting much effort into this agency, the agency is growing really well and you're super lit up. And it's time to go all in. So that's exactly what I did. So I pivoted my podcast out of the whole Etsy world and the e-commerce world. And I started talking about more podcasting and a little bit more general marketing. So instead of just being, marketing for e-commerce mamas, basically that's what I was talking about. I started talking more about like leveraging your podcast and marketing in general and things like that. And at that point, I just want to be super transparent here. Like my downloads actually plummeted because, I had this really engaged audience. Most of my audience, they were mainly Etsy sellers, a little bit of Amazon sellers, but they were like, okay, this isn't really for me anymore, which is okay. I completely understand. I wouldn't have expected them to stick around, but my podcast downloads actually did plummet. And, I just stayed consistent because at the end of the day, I had a business that was still making money. So even though my podcast downloads decreased, I just kept on trucking forward because at the end of the day, it was the money in the bank account that was really like an indicator of, is this working or not? So, I just kept on going and I just kept on podcasting. And then slowly my download numbers starting to increase again, which again, there are so many reasons why this happened. Like not only did I switch my niche a little bit, well, a lot of it, but also my keywords changed and the backend of Apple and just ranking and how things work. So all of that was extremely expected. So then March of 2022 until December of 2023, we just kept doing our thing. So the agency grew, I hired more people, obviously we got more clients and our results really started to speak for themselves. For example, almost 90% of our clients, they rank in the top 5% of all podcasters worldwide. 75% of my clients have been able to get on Apple charts on day one. And my own podcast throughout this time hit the top 0.5% of all podcasts worldwide, which blows my mind. It's like difficult for me to say because remember, I started with an audience of 0, and it's not like I'm this well-known influencer, like people know me by name, like I'm no Jenna Kutcher or Amy Porterfield, like nobody like literally knows me, but I'm making a name for myself in this podcasting space. And most importantly, I have a successful business that grows every single month, and it's due to my podcast and my commitment. Now, as we go into the years beyond, I am just really here for God's journey and whatever He has in store for me. So I pray a lot, and I just always ask Him to guide me in the right direction, to make sure that everything that I'm doing is to glorify His kingdom. And that's the path that I'm on. So I'm really trying to surrender more and more. Surrendering is a practice. It is definitely a skill that you need to work on because it's just really hard to just like surrender. But, of course, in the process, I also did become Christian. I wasn't always Christian. So that was just another layer to the journey that honestly made the journey a whole lot easier for me because I'm like, oh, this isn't just me. Like God has my back. So that definitely changed everything for me. And of course, we keep on working on our craft and our skill. We're always looking for ways to optimize our clients' podcasts and how they can get more downloads and how we can make everything better. What is the latest and the greatest in the podcast world? Of course, like we don't want to get distracted with all the things, but we're always working on our skills and how we can optimize this to the max so that our client really has the best experience so that their podcasts are growing and they're getting more downloads and they're making more money and all of the things so that they can grow their influence and do the things that honestly matters most to them. So I don't know where you are on your journey, but I really hope that by me sharing my journey with you, that it has sparked some hope and joy of what is possible when you commit to something and you take the right steps, right? Like I talk a lot about strategy and SEO and optimization and being data driven and all of the things, but it does pay off. I put in a lot of work in the upfront of my podcast, but now SEO optimization is a second language to me. Like I don't even bat an eye. Like I know what to do with things like that. And same thing for our clients. It really becomes a thing that you just do and it comes very naturally and you know what to do. You know how to tweak things. You're able to look at everything from a bird's eye view. The point being, when you commit to something and you actually just tell yourself like, this is going to work, it's going to work. Just do the thing. And I talk a lot in depth about all the things in this podcast. You can like literally binge and get so much insightful information that can actually apply to your show and see a result from. And also next week, we're talking about rankings and ratings and how to get in front of your ideal listeners. So make sure that you tune in because I'm giving away some very, very juicy tips and tricks. So you don't want to miss those. And until next time, may you find God's love, peace, grace, and mercy, and I'll see you then. Bye.